returned to the High Court in Pretoria today. Forensic officer Senzo Meyiwa, who collected evidence from the crime scene, is still on the witness stand. All of the accused have pleaded not guilty to the 2014 murder of the former Orlando Pirates goalkeeper. eNCA Silindelo Masikane is covering that trial for us and joins us now. Good morning, Silindelo. What are we expecting today in court?
What we are expecting is of course, the continuation of cross-examination of Sergeant Senzo Meyiwa, the forensic officer, who was the first to collect evidence after Meyiwa was shot and killed that evening. Now, what the defense has been doing since the start of cross-examination is basically doing their bit to show the court that there are issues with not only how evidence was gathered, but issues around how it was kept and whether it's actually authentic at all. To start off with, the defense for accused 1 to 4 have laid the ground in terms of telling the court that they believe the crime scene was contaminated from the very beginning, that there was a plan that was hatched to basically cover up for those who are actually guilty of the crime, and that these men in the dock are actually being used as scapegoats. They've also introduced what we understand to be a secondary docket, an entirely different investigation into the Meyiwa murder, which has a different set of investigators as well as a different set of suspects. That particular docket points to Kelu Khumalo and those in the house as the ones who have a case to answer to. This week, defense advocate Malisa Ladefo has put it to the court that in fact Kelu Khumalo shot Senzo Meyiwa by mistake and used a revolver as the gun. What we also of course saw this week was advocate Zandile Mshololo for accused number 5 beginning her cross-examination of Meyiwa. She's gone further on to actually dispute the evidence before the court. She started off with issues around how evidence was collected, in particular the fact that Meyiwa has conceded to the fact that he needed help to collect evidence, that the officer who was first on the scene, Brigadier Johan Dlovu, pointed out where he should be taking pictures. He only took 8 pictures. We have over 100 pictures that have been presented to the court in the docket. However, of those more than 100 pictures, only 8 actually came from Meyiwa, and also Zandile Mshololo going into detail, putting it to the court, saying that she believes in fact that the evidence that Meyiwa collected was actually planted at the scene, because there is no tracking record in terms of how this evidence was stored. Let's take a listen to what she had to say yesterday.
459 kalbaka lauri exhibit like ha eteng ka di weekend skia se soroki exhibit like se neng ka se etsa fela gore ke di keep ke di mark di book ka register ke di keep safe gore exhibit register exhibit like ha fitla ka letsatsi la harabe ke Monday then ke atlo khona ho di store safe.
I did make mention that the reason I kept them or put them at SAP 459, it was because the register clerk was not present. So I wanted to register them in this evidence register for safekeeping, so that on a Monday when the register clerk arrives, they will be able to secure this evidence.
Lesengishilo ke noma ngicaciseleke ukuthi imbangela yokuthi ke lokufakazi ngigcineke ingoba iclerk lena ke iregister kwakuyi weekend futhi engekho ke emsebenzini, bengifuna ke ukuthi igcinakale isafe, ngakho ukuthi kutholakala ukuthi ke Monday uma besefika noma esefika ke emsebenzini bakwazi ukuthi ayithole.
We are making it worse. The reason why you did not mention the crucial evidence that you are telling this court about now, it's because these exhibits never existed. Number one, we never retrieved them from the crime scene, and there is no record as to where they were stored, because they were planted from the crime scene, and there is no tracking record of how these exhibits were kept.
a re lebaka le etsang hore ebe o thatafatsa dintho ebile o di lobokanya ka puo ke ka mokgwa hore dintho tseo ha di a fumanwa sebakeng sa ketsahalo ke dintho tse plantuwe mane sebakeng sa ketsahalo ke ka ho le wena o hlolehang hore o hlalose ka botlalo hore ho etsahetseng ka bopaki bo I do not know about what you are saying.
All right. Now, Silindelo, beyond the developments in court yesterday, there was also other developments on the court corridors. We understand that there will be a laying of criminal charges against Magdalene Munsami, as well as the members of the family that were there. Can you just give us clarity on that?
So, of course, we are seeing that there are a number of sideshows, as legal experts call them, in terms of what's surrounding this trial. Now, we know that Kelu Khumalo has hired attorney Magdalene Munsami on a watch brief. She was, though, subsequently taken out of court due to the defense raising issues around the fact that Khumalo could be a possible witness, and her having a lawyer in court could basically, prejudice their clients as well. So what we've seen unfolding in terms of the allegations put to the court that Khumalo was the one who shot and killed Meyiwa. Her lawyer then responding yesterday saying that they find these allegations quite preposterous and that they are dangerous, and that Kelu Khumalo wants to possibly take legal recourse. She's consulting with her lawyer around that, and subsequent to that, then the defense, the instructing attorney for accused 1 to 4, responding to Munsami, saying that her utterances to the media around the fact that Khumalo wants to know who this eyewitness is who's going to testify that she shot Meyiwa is actually quite intimidating, and they say that they want to report her to the LPC, that's the Legal Practitioners Council, saying that she is jeopardizing this case and intimidating witnesses by threatening legal action against them. What we also understand from Titi Tobane is that he also says he wants to lay charges of defeating the ends of justice against Munsami, as well as 1010 Films, the producers of the Meyiwa Netflix documentary, because he says the flighting of that documentary days before the trial is tantamount to defeating the ends of justice. So all of this is unfolding outside of this trial, and from what we understand from speaking to those in the fraternity, that they shouldn't really affect what happens inside, and that what we're seeing playing out is just part of possible strategies coming from the defense, as well as Khumalo, and at this point, it just remains to be seen exactly when she'll be called to the stand. Her lawyer telling us that she is more than ready to take the stand. She wants her day in court. She wants to say her piece. And at this point, the state's not giving any clarity as to when that will happen. But what also came out of that conversation with Munsami, Funda, which was quite interesting, is that I had asked her that does she believe that there are issues around how these investigations have taken place, and whether there is a possibility that investigations were botched from the very beginning. She then revealed that, what's quite interesting for her is the fact that Khumalo and the others who were in the home were never called to identify these men who are on trial right now. There was never an ID parade. So it brings into question whether, do we have the right men here? I mean, according to the NPA, they believe that these men have a case to answer to, and that there is enough evidence against them to have a successful prosecution. We're still in the very early stages, of course, of this trial, only on witness number 1. So we will see exactly what kind of evidence the state has against the accused.
But clearly that would have been a crucial step, Silindelo, if we're talking about the identity parade, because the prosecution could have easily reached out to those who were present on the day that Senzo Meyiwa died and just asked them to come and identify these gentlemen. So that, one would say, was that low-hanging fruit, where at the very least, you seal your case by ensuring that Kelly Khumalo and those that were in the house know these men. They can identify them as the ones that were the so-called intruders. So has the prosecution answered to this? Do we know why they wouldn't have at least done this very, very crucial step or concluded this?
Not at this stage, but of course, like I say, we're still in the very early stages of this trial, Mfundo, and the defense will possibly, of course, raise this in the defense of their clients to say nobody has actually identified these guys in terms of those who were in the home. At this point, they've just only started to poke holes in terms of how investigations were conducted, in terms of how evidence has been collected and stored and kept, and telling the court that there is some serious questions that need to be answered about how the crime scene was treated, and if at all the courts can actually accept the evidence before it.
All right. Do we expect Advocate Mshololo to conclude today with Mr. Masia, or we're expecting that perhaps even continue well into the next week?
We don't know, Mfundo, but I mean, we do have about 5 hours of court time per day. We started around 10 a.m. with an hour's break for lunch. It all really depends on the answers that Mosia gives the court in terms of how long his cross-examination is going to last. At this point, every time there's an inconsistency, then it raises more questions that the defense wants answers to. So at this point, we don't know if cross-examination will conclude today, but after cross-examination we expect re-examination once more from the state for Mosia, and then of course we will find out before we close off for the day exactly what we can expect next week.
All right, well, certainly going to be another interesting day in court. Silindelo, we'll leave it there for now. That's reporter Silindelo Masikane out in court for us at the Senzo Meyiwa case. To this